around the country. I'm trying to get as many people as I can not to get married. I promise never to get married. I've been married, and I'm just trying to help. Okay. So here, has never been married? You never been married? What's your name? Michael? Well, Michael, if you ever think about getting married, if you ever think you've met the right woman, you want to settle down, change your life, you do me a favor, Mike? Remember this face. Because if you get married, Mike, that's going to be your fucking face every day. It's the face of every married man. He wakes up in the morning. It's the truth, man. He wakes up in the morning, he goes to the mirror, he looks in it and goes, what did I do to my life? It's true, folks. Well, there's one good thing about marriage. I don't want to put the whole institution down. There's one good thing about marriage. Best thing about marriage is that these are connected. They don't come on. Because if they did, your wife would take it as soon as you got married. She'd go, you're married now. You won't be needing that. I'll just take care of that for you, okay?
Good morning. It's Tuesday, Trump Tuesday, April the 9th, and this is The True Conservative. Welcome to all the butchers, bakers, and candlestick makers out there. I'm Ron, your host, and the only true conservative in the United States today. So today, after the Serenity Prayer and the patriotic song of the day, we will have patriotic shorts, motivation, Bishop Barron, Ayn Rand, the 33 strategies of war, and Donald Trump. All that and more when I get back. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I should not change, the courage to change the things I should, and the wisdom to know the difference. Amen.
History in every century records an act that lives forevermore. We'll recall as into line we fall the thing that happened on Hawaii shore. Let's remember Pearl Harbor as we go to meet the foe. Let's remember Pearl Harbor as we did the Alamo. We will always remember how they died for liberty. Let's remember Pearl Harbor and go on to victory.
Thank you. And now, cars.
Hey everybody, I've got an FJ40, a Land Cruiser block here, and I found out something that's a little different. Normally we would line hone this, but every one of these main caps has a different size bearing journal in it. So I'm going to take this over to my Rottler 5-axis and align bore each one. I'm going to show you how we do that. This is what's nice about a CNC. CNC stands for Computer Numeric Control, and it basically makes a glorified drill press, a very expensive drill press, be able to put a cutter anywhere on this one within 4 axes, X, Y, Z, and A, anywhere I want to in space within this table. And right now, what I want to do is I've probed this, and I know the exact center of that hole. I'm now going to use this right angle cutter, and I'm going to recut that cap and center that hole correctly with the rest of the centers of this crank. I've got a 2016 Eco Diesel Ram. It's the V6. They're a little diesel in their trucks. And I've got a problem here. What it was a coolant leak. Customers complained and brought it to me for a coolant leak. And this is where the coolant's been leaking. And where that leak is, I've taken the pipe out of here. But this is a pipe that comes, it's a bear to get to. That's why the cab's up off of it. This pipe goes around the back side of the head, and you can see how it's leaking out of this connection here. That connection also hooks to this turbo hose, and you can see where that's been leaking. In fact, that coolant turns, it just gets like that. How did that happen? I believe it's lack of maintenance. I don't think we're supposed to leave this coolant in here for 100,000 miles. We need to be flushing the coolant. It's causing corrosion in the pipe, and they're rusting out. So, coolant system maintenance, real important. I also found something else, and we'll show you that in another video. LS gaskets, they very rarely blow like a composite head gasket. Composite head gasket basically is composite material. It's not multi-layer steel. Remember again, this is a multi-layer steel gasket. This one's got 5 layers of steel. And when a multi-layer steel gasket, you got to really kind of know what you're looking for. So let me kind of show you. This is part of this blown head gasket here, where this is the water jacket. You can see this here, this discoloration. But you look right here by the fire ring, where you don't have that on this side. See on this fire ring here? See how this is nice and clear? You see how you're getting this burn part right back here, and you can kind of see where it's burning right here on the edge. You see that? That's no longer a smooth round surface here. And you'll see where that's starting to chew away at that. And all the layers are kind of chewed away right in there. And that's leaking to the water jacket. You're not going to see it blown up like you would on a composite gasket. Most MLS gaskets do not blow like that. And if they do, well, it's easy to see.
This is the teeny tiny Jeep Wrangler you've been waiting for. You know, folks say Wranglers are too expensive. Well, check this out. This is called the Jeep Shortcut, and it's like a little baby Wrangler with some really cool retro flair. It's got a custom grille, it's got this unique hood, and the inside is fantastic. It's all about being basic. No huge screens, just simple radio buttons, basic climate controls, and these awesome retro seats with the plaid and the alligator skin, baby. It's got a soft top to save weight. It's got a huge trunk, and it's got this 1960s style fuel filler. Now, the Jeep Shortcut originally came out in 2016 as a concept, but Jeep has brought it back in 2024. And Jeep is very deliberate. That might be a message. Something similar like this is coming soon. It even has a tailgate and custom bumpers to keep it as small as possible. Let me know what you think of the Jeep Shortcut concept.
This is the other thing we found here. It's actually the turbo. This is the turbine side, and this is the compressor side. Turbine side is on the exhaust, compressor side is on the intake. So I'm going to show you over here on the intake. So you have the impeller. And as you can see, an impeller is all wiped out on the intake side. Now we go to the exhaust side. On this side, there's no impeller. You're like, where'd it go? I don't know whether all that heat melted the impeller, a good possibility. So all that stuff then, as soon as it exits the turbine, comes right down in through here and blows into this cat. So I'm sure the front of this cat is just melted, or there's pieces of whatever that the turbine sticking in front of that cat. We had another thing. I know. Sometimes you're like, you're kidding me. This thing never ends.
But we bought some Explorers that were conversions. We sold it and it came back. A few days later, there's a noise in the dash. He drops the glove box down, a little baggie of pills falls out. Hits the dash, more pills fall out. He pulls the glove box inside out. Pills come out from everywhere. He pulled the door panels off of it, full of pills. The interior quarter panels, full of pills. This person is sitting in the service waiting room, and we're pulling shovel loads of pills out of this damn Explorer. I call the police. We filled up a 30-gallon trash bag with mystery pills. We had a drug dog go through it, cleaned it up in the detail shop while they waited, and they pulled it around. They said, guess what? Your blower motor, the fan, was a little loose. Got you all ready to go.
But we found a 64.5 Mustang 260. A buddy of mine had bought a 1985 Mustang GT, and we went to see Van Halen. And we pulled out together, and I stuck my front bumper to that Mustang GT. That thing blowed all to pieces. Called my daddy on the payphone. Just go and go what you doing, and I'll get somebody to come get it. I bought a 83 Mustang GT. I think it was my 18th birthday, and I got that thing up to 120 miles an hour on that dirt road. I was up in a man's yard by the end of it and got it back straight and got out and looked at it after it was over with, and it had crushed that whole fender on the right side end. My daddy, he said, I ain't paying your car payment for you. So I sent him all the money I got. He still sold it. And then I got another Mustang when I got out of the Marine Corps. I got an 85 Mustang, and I had it hammered. 120. I believe he clocked us at 110. My friend, he took the ticket for me. We all jumped out of the car. He actually lost his license for me.
This is a super cool feature you wish your car had. This is a 1997 Ford F-250. These are called OBS trucks, or old body style trucks. And this F-250 has 2 fuel tanks with 2 separate fuel doors. Now, the front tank you access here, and the rear tank, of course, is accessed via this flap in the back. Now, the capacity between these 2 tanks is pretty huge. The front tank has a 19-gallon capacity, and the rear tank has an 18.2-gallon capacity, and here's how you switch between them. Located up here on the dashboard is a switch. It's labeled fuel, and there's an option for front and rear. Push it front, that's going to engage the front tank. Push it rear, that's going to engage the rear tank. Now, the cool thing about that switch is you can activate it on the fly, and there's only one fuel gauge. So when I go between front and rear, the fuel gauge actually moves depending on which tank I've selected. So the rear tank is pretty much empty right now. The diesel fuel level goes down, but if we go back to front, you can see that the needle starts to rise. Now, ideally, you'd use your front tank till you run out, and then you select your rear tank.
But they said it's bumper to bumper. This is the same experience, Mr. Pitts, you would have as buying a brand new Rover. Signed up, bought it. He said, we're going to send your Rover over to have it detailed. I said, no, there's no sense in cleaning it up yet. And I showed him the driver's side fairing. I said, see that scratch on it? He goes, yeah. I said, I need that replaced. Well, you're going to put one new fairing on it while all the other ones have faded. So now it's going to look like I have a wrecked Rover. In the back seat, it had an indention. They ordered me a new back seat for it. They put that stupid tire cover on the back. So I tore that off on the spot. Put a Land Rover sticker on the back of it, and it was crooked. I said, you better pray on all things holy that you do not scratch this thing removing your decal off the back of my Rover. Well, as he pulled out, there was a puddle of antifreeze under it. Did that come out of my Rover? Surely not. They put me a new water pump on it. They went ahead and put me a set of valve cover gaskets on it because I thought I smelled oil. Anyway, I got my Rover, and I was dating a girl at the time who was very tall, and I actually sold it to her. She's still driving that car to this day, which is a small miracle in itself because it is a Rover.
This all started when we went down to Los Angeles for Fuel Run Midnight Run. This was a completely purpose-built short course truck to race off-road. And Randy starts this thing up, and it's just the whole thing is just shaking. Every single chance that Randy had, he's gunning it, trying to get the whole suspension to kick over so he can three-wheel the damn thing. Right when we got out, he just starts going left, right, and he's just like, jolly, huge smile on his face because the whole truck's going like this. We saw a cop that we knew we were going to pass, and we ended up blocking him in with the Savage Garage big truck and trailer. We put the SVC truck behind the trailer in comparison to where the cop was. So the cop never saw the truck, but of course I'm sure he just heard the like going by, and I just go, all right, Randy, how was that? And he gets out of the car and he's like, that was awesome.
And that was Cars. Thank you. And now, the Patriotic Shorts.
Do you know in Band of Brothers, during the liberation of Eindhoven, Winters and Welsh are briefly seen turning their shirt collars inside out. Compton asks them what's up, and Welsh replies snipers, which prompting Compton to also adjust his collar. They are actually hiding their rank insignia to prevent German snipers from identifying them as officers. Snipers often single out officers, since killing them would cause confusion and disorganization among enemy forces. This is why in contemporary war zones and in forward operating bases, soldiers wear either subdued or no rank insignia, and many are no salute zones.
We were chasing a bomb maker, and we didn't know really anything about it. We had like a name, we had no image, we didn't know age, and we hit this house, and there was a bunch of people in the house. I made entry into the room. This kid, to me, I wouldn't have guessed he was but 14 years old. He reached down and grabbed an AK, and I basically went from the high ready to on him to off safe, and I yelled, "Don't do it." He threw the AK on the ground. Like, he got to like here, and then he like saw me, and then he threw the AK on the ground. Well, it turns out, so that dude was like the area expert on IED construction. He's in the back of the van. They cuffed his wrists, but they didn't cuff him to the vehicle. And he goes, "See that building right there?" And the dudes that were in the truck all turned and looked to the right, and he slid the window open and hopped out, ran into the crowd. They pursued him for like 10 feet and then realized they're in a crowd of 1,000 Iraqis. So they thought better of it and they let him go.
First time I'd ever shot at something that wasn't paper, didn't know exactly what was going to happen. That person ended up falling backwards and was kind of rocking at the bottom of the stairs with the weapon right in front of him. Shot him a few more times, like, holy shit, in my head, I remember that just happened. And then I started hearing wailing in the courtyard. And it was his mother, because he probably was 13. And he had heard his dad on the roof struggling with somebody. And he probably did exactly what I would have done in that situation. He ran up. And his mom started running out. And one of the few words that I understood in that language was dresh, which means stop. Mm-hmm. And if she had taken probably one or two more steps towards that AK, I would have dumped her too. But I have kids, 14, 17, and 19. And I have thought about my kids and that kid probably every single day since that happened.
I was in Germany, and I was my 3 years were about to be up, and I heard somewhere that Special Forces had units in Laos. And somewhere along the way, I picked up at what allegedly Napoleon said to his generals when one of them came to him and said, "General, I have this circumstance, what should I do?" And Napoleon said, "A soldier's duty is to move to the side of the guns." And that has been my mantra.
I didn't have a big picture. All I knew was what my job was and what I knew was going on, where I was at. I had no idea of the stepping stones and that Okinawa would be next and that they were planning to invade Japan and that Peleliu and Taro were taken because of the airfields, and none of that came through to me. I found out about Iwo Jima and Guam after I got out, and I read all about it. I found out what I was involved in. But when you're a private pushing to become a PFC, making $30 a month, you're just concerned where your next meal is coming from, what it's going to be, and who is the unfortunate fellow that's going to get shot instead of you.
These paratroopers are about to jump off the plane, but that's the easy part. Landing is the hard part, because landing the wrong way could shatter your legs on impact or even rupture organs. Carrying an additional 70 to 90 pounds of gear does not help, but paratroopers have a smart way of dealing with the gear at the time of landing, and it's not what you think. Soldiers exit the aircraft using static lines, which open the parachutes automatically. After ensuring the chute has opened completely and that there are no twists, they orient themselves with the direction of drift. Paratroopers use the parachute landing fall, or PLF landing technique, to distribute the landing shock over their entire body and minimize the possibility of injuries. In preparation for landing, they lower their gear below them so they don't have to take the hit for all that extra weight. Based on the drift direction, the jumper decides which basic PLF technique to use, side, front, or rear. The average rate of injury for military parachutists is 2.62 per 1,000 jumps. The worst thing to do is attempting a stand-up landing. To see that kind of landing gone wrong, check out the link in the description, but you've been warned.
How much does it cost to train a U.S. Air Force pilot? How much it costs to train a B-2 pilot will blow your mind. Starting with the C-17, $1,324,000. C-5, $1,686,000. C-130J, $2,986,000. F-15, $6,735,000. F-16, $6,781,000. RC-135, $6,574,000. B-1, $8,857,000. B-52, $11,693,000. F-15C, $11,104,000. F-35, $12,271,000. B-2, $11,938,000. F-22, $13,152,000.
He joined the Merchant Marine in late 1942, just months after getting married. He had just turned 21 years old and was eager to do his part for the war effort, despite failing his Army physical. His name was James Doherty, though his teenage bride took to calling him Jimmy. Soon after the two eloped, Jimmy set sail for the Pacific Theater, where he would spend the duration of the war running critical supplies through the South China Sea to help the Allied war effort. At one point, he even tread water for 6 hours after a Japanese submarine sunk his ship, barely surviving the ordeal. It was September 1945 when he received a Dear John letter from his young bride, one of countless thousands suffered by unsuspecting soldiers and sailors. Their marriage was over, she wrote to the devastated Jimmy. She had a burgeoning modeling and acting career to attend to and wanted to be unencumbered. And I no longer go by Norma Jean, she signed off. I'm now Marilyn Monroe.
I wore a Mae West life preserver and a belt boat. I couldn't swim and I didn't want to take any chances. Not that swimming did you any good over there, and I'll tell you why. Because when we finally landed there, amongst 5,000 ships, they say 4,000, whatever it was, 4,000 or 5,000 ships, there were a lot of ships out there. We were anchored when we got there, broadside to shore. I thought how stupid that was because we was a big target. And they were shooting the 88s, the artillery, hitting ships all over the place. Saw a tanker blow up, bodies in the water, debris in the water. We all got on standing next to the boat head opposite shore. Hopefully get some protection if his ship got hit. I don't know how long I did that. Seemed like days. But I don't know how long, maybe an hour or two, I don't know. All I know is I knew there was a war on.
In the face of radar-guided missile proliferation and continued growing sophistication in the technology, a new decoy system was developed. This new technology is released from this panel. When needed, this access door opens and a transmitter begins to reel out to a safe distance behind the plane. It has 3 levels of countermeasures to protect the F-35 from attack. First, it actively jams missiles while they attempt to lock onto their target by emitting jamming signals which the onboard computer computes and delivers to the emitter through the fiber optic tow line. If the radar manages to obtain a lock, it then begins to attempt to break the lock, disrupting the tracking algorithms guiding the missile towards its target. Finally, if all is lost and the missile is bearing down on the aircraft, the emitter begins to simulate the aircraft's radar signature, drawing the missile toward it as a decoy.
And that was the Patriotic Shorts. Back in a minute. Thank you. And now a little bit of motivation.
What is more important in being successful at achieving your goals, nature or nurture?
Nature versus nurture. And in my opinion, it's neither. In my whole life, I've seen people from every different strata. And in all of those different groups, there were some people that were successful and got the job done, and some people that were unsuccessful and couldn't get it done. So to me, it's not about nature or nurture. It's about choice. The people that are successful decide they are going to be successful. They make that choice. And they make other choices. They decide to study hard. They choose to work hard. They choose to be the first person to get to work and the last person to go home. choose to take on the hard jobs, take on the challenges. They decide they're going to lead when no one else will. They choose who they're going to hang around with and be associated with, and they choose who they're going to emulate. These people choose to become who they want to become. They aren't inhibited by nature or nurture. They overcome both.
You can't make a difference until you make a decision. So, some of you, man, you keep crying. You complaining about your job. You complaining about where you are financially. You complaining about your relationship. You complaining about your opportunities. You complaining. Shut up! Stop complaining and do me a favor. If you want to make a difference, all you got to do is one thing. This is how you get started. You want something different? Listen to me. All you got to do is make a decision. That's it.
The reason you don't have the skills is because you didn't put in the 20 fucking years. You didn't make the day-to-day decisions. You didn't do the things that needed to be done when you didn't feel like doing them. You didn't practice when you needed to practice. Instead, you chose the easier routes. And that's the difference. That's the difference between people who do things and people who talk about doing things. You have what it takes. You have the opportunity. You have the tools. You are making a choice to not execute the way you need to execute. You are choosing to be where you are. It's not lack of talent. It's not lack of ability. It's not lack of circumstance. It's not lack of opportunity. It is a fucking choice that you are making to stay where you are because you are choosing to not do what needs to be done.
Don't let nature or nurture make you. Choose to make yourself.
And that was a little motivation. Back in a minute. Thank you. Now the daily law for April the 9th.
April 9th. So much depends on reputation. In the social realm, appearances are the barometer of almost all our judgments, and you must never be misled into believing otherwise. One false slip, one awkward or sudden change in your appearance can prove disastrous. This is the reason for the supreme importance of making and maintaining a reputation that is of your own creation. That reputation will protect you in the dangerous game of appearances, distracting the probing eyes of others from knowing what you are really like, and giving you a degree of control over how the world judges you. A powerful position to be in. Reputation has a power like magic. With one stroke of its wand, it can double your strength. It can also send people scurrying away from you. Whether the exact same deeds appear brilliant or dreadful can depend entirely on the reputation of the doer. Reputation, therefore, is a treasure to be carefully collected and hoarded. Especially when you are first establishing it, you must protect it, strictly anticipating all attacks on it. Once it is solid, do not let yourself get angry or defensive at the slanderous comments of your enemies. That reveals insecurity, not confidence in your reputation. Take the high road instead, and never appear desperate in your self-defense. Daily law. Reputation is the cornerstone of power. Through reputation alone, you can intimidate and win. Once it slips, however, you are vulnerable and will be attacked on all sides. Never let others define it for you. The 48 Laws of Power, Law 5. So much depends on reputation. Guard it with your life.
And that was the daily law for April the 9th from the book The Daily Laws by Robert Greene. Back in a minute. Thank you. And now, Bishop Robert Barron.
My ability to speak articulately is correlated very directly to my ability to hear. If I hear certain voices, I'm going to start reproducing them. That's the way we learn language. A lot of people in our culture, they are tuned to other voices. The voice I've talked about a lot with you of subjectivist individualism, the voice of moral relativism. If these are all the voices we ever hear, that's all we're ever going to say. What's the point? We in our culture are often deaf to the voice of God, deaf to this higher voice that speaks a divine spiritual truth, that speaks of eternal moral values, that speaks of the existence and demand and invitation of God. We're deaf to that voice. And therefore, what? We are inarticulate in our capacity to express these truths. Because we can't hear them, we can't speak them.
And that was Bishop Robert Barron. Back in a minute. Thank you. And now the Ayn Rand thought of the day. Quote, a proper approach to morality begins by acknowledging that the facts of reality are absolute. The law of gravity is an absolute. The molecular composition of water is an absolute. The fact that we need water to live on is an absolute. The nature of nature is non-negotiable. It is unalterable by any agency, and it sets the requirements of successful life and happiness. Unquote. And that was the Ayn Rand thought of the day. Back in a minute. Thank you. And now we pick up where we left off with the 33 strategies of war.
Imagine that everything you do has a moment of perfection and fruition. Your goal is to end your project there, at such a peak. Succumb to tiredness, boredom, or impatience for the end, and you fall short of that peak. Greed and delusions of grandeur will make you go too far. To conclude, at this moment of perfection, you must have the clearest possible sense of your goals, of what you really want. You must also command an in-depth knowledge of your resources. How far can you practicably go? This kind of awareness will give you an intuitive feel for the culminating point. Endings in purely social relationships demand a sense of the culminating point as much as those in war. A conversation or story that goes on too long always ends badly. Overstaying your welcome, boring people with your presence is the deepest failing. You should leave them wanting more of you, not less. You can accomplish this by bringing the conversation or encounter to an end a moment before the other side expects it. Leave too soon, and you may seem timid or rude. But do your departure right at the peak of enjoyment and liveliness, the culminating point, and you create a devastatingly positive afterglow. People will still be thinking of you long after you are gone. In general, it is always best to end with energy and flair on a high note. Victory and defeat are what you make of them. It is how you deal with them that matters. Since defeat is inevitable in life, you must master the art of losing well and strategically. First, think of your own mental outlook, how you absorb defeat psychologically. See it as a temporary setback, something to wake you up and teach you a lesson. And even as you lose, you end on a high note and with an edge. You are mentally prepared to go on the offensive in the next round. So often, those who have success become soft and imprudent. You must welcome defeat as a way to make yourself stronger. Second, you must see any defeat as a way to demonstrate something positive about yourself and your character to other people. This means standing tall, not showing signs of bitterness or becoming defensive. Early in his term as president, John F. Kennedy embroiled the country in the Bay of Pigs fiasco, a failed invasion of Cuba. While he accepted full responsibility for the debacle, he did not overdo his apologies. Instead, he went to work on correcting the mistake, making sure it would not happen again. He kept his composure, showing remorse, but also strength. In doing so, he won public and political support that helped him immensely in his future fights. Third, if you see that defeat is inevitable, it is often best to go down swinging. That way you end on a high note even as you lose. This helps to rally the troops, giving them hope for the future. At the Battle of the Alamo in 1836, every last American fighting the Mexican army died. But they died heroically, refusing to surrender. The battle became a rallying cry, "Remember the Alamo," and an inspired American force under Sam Houston finally defeated the Mexicans for good. You do not have to experience physical martyrdom, but a display of heroism and energy makes defeat into a moral victory that will soon enough translate into a concrete one. Planting the seeds of future victory in present defeat is strategic brilliance of the highest order. Finally, since any ending is a kind of beginning of the next phase, it is often wise strategy to end on an ambivalent note. If you are reconciling with an enemy after a fight, subtly hint that you still have a residue of doubt, that the other side must still prove itself to you. When a campaign or project comes to an end, leave people feeling that they cannot foresee what you will do next. Keep them in suspense, toying with their attention. By ending on a note of mystery and ambiguity, a mixed signal, an insinuating comment, a touch of doubt, you gain the upper hand for the next round in a most subtle and insidious fashion. Reversal. There can be no value in ending anything badly. There is no reversal.
And that was the latest from Chapter 22, Know How to End Things, from the 33 Strategies of War. Back in a minute. Thank you. If you're a Democrat, you should be voting Republican. And if you're a Democrat, woman, because we are the party of women. We're the party of strong women. We know that abortion does not empower women. As a matter of fact, it empowers men. Men are the beneficiaries of abortions, not women. So remember, if you're a Democrat woman, you need to vote Republican. Back in a minute. Thank you. Now some Squawk Box, an interview that's being done here.
You don't need this new power to censor Americans.
One of the things I wanted to read you, and I just thought it was fascinating, when you worked in the White House as director of presidential personnel, Jonathan Swan wrote about your role at the time in making sweeping staff changes. And he said the following. He said, this campaign helmed by Trump's loyalty enforcer, that's who what he called you, a 30-year-old former body man who now runs hiring for the government, is part of the systematic purging of reassigning of those deemed insufficiently supportive of Trump. What do you think of that? And what do you think of what the American public should think of what that administration was then and what it would be in the future as it relates to trying to bring both sides together, to the extent you think that should be the case?
So anyways, so what he's doing here is he's asking a leading question, and it's a gotcha question. There's no doubt about it. He's talking about something about this individual's role when he was in the Trump administration. That's like 4 years ago. And he's talking about an article that was written like 4 years ago. And so if you're in a situation where you're being interviewed, listen carefully. Ask yourself not only what are they saying, what are they doing? And if he's acting not as an interviewer, as a neutral third party, but he's acting as an attorney, because that's what he's doing now. He's crossed the line from being a neutral third party that's asking good faith questions to being an attorney who is cross-examining or trying to engage the interviewee in a deposition. then remember, you don't have to answer questions just because somebody asks them. This is good for rank and file people. This is also good for politicians. If you're a politician, it's okay to say, you know what? You've just crossed the line. You're now engaging me in a deposition, not in a good faith interview. Now, if you'd like to rephrase the question, I'll see what I can do about answering it and do that. Now, more than likely, they're going to just double back, say, well, no, but, and go back to the original question, in which case you're going to have to respond the same way. And then perhaps ask them, are we done? Is this the end of the interview? But the point is, again, they win because they set themselves up to win. And we lose because we allow them to set themselves up to win. If we simply quit allowing these people to set themselves up to win, we win. We should win. We're right, they're wrong. So we should win, and we should win every day, all the time. And we can. And it doesn't take 20 years worth of training our kids, a whole generation, as you hear some people in some of the books that I put on my podcast. No. We can do it right now. Right now. You go in, because remember, all of this stuff this is being broadcast. So the people in your office, when you go into your office, these communists that are in your office are listening to this. And they're going to use this as talking points, and they're going to come in and they're going to pigeonhole you, maybe in the break room. Hey, what about this guy on Squawk Box that was a mouthpiece for the Trump administration? What do you feel about that? What do you think about that? And you remember, I don't have to answer these questions. And if they respond with something like, don't you care? You could feel free to say, you know what? No, I don't. You have a nice day. Because I don't have to care. I'm not a politician. I'm not running for office. I don't need their votes. Now, if you're an office holder or you're running for office, then of course you do. So you got to be a little bit more, find a better answer for that, for the don't you care response. And it actually is rather easy to deal with if you just think for a couple of seconds. But the point is, just because they ask a question doesn't mean you have to answer it. And again, don't let them put you in a box. You can stop that and say, this is the wrong question. The right question is, say the right question, and then give them the right answer. Or in this particular case, since I have no idea what the right question would be in this situation, you simply ask them to rephrase. Okay, and if they stammer and stutter, then you say, well, maybe we'll talk about it later, and walk away. So collect your victory, walk away. Winner, winner, chicken dinner. Back in a minute. Thank you. And now, Stuart Barney's My Take.
Joe Biden is the giveaway president. He's giving away your money. He's giving away our country. He hopes that in return he gets your vote. The latest is community college. He wants to give that away too. Roll it.
I also want to make, and I've been pushing this, and if I'm reelected, I'm going to push it hard. I'm going to get it done next time, is I want to make community college tuition free. So you won't need loans at all. We're cutting half the cost of going to college. If we do this, the economic gains will far outweigh the cost, and that's not hyperbole. That's the truth.
Yeah, it's just so easy, isn't it? Community college is reduced to remedial high school, and you pay for it. Biden will give it away if he gets a second term. Same with student loans. He wants to have taxpayers take over all or part of the debt for 40 million people. He gives, you pay. I could extend the point. Biden is giving our country away. If there's no penalty for sneaking in by the million, there is no value to citizenship. Legal immigrants play by the rules. They go through the process. They see the value. Biden gives it away, along with housing, education, food, phones, and healthcare. What really worries me is that as a political strategy, it might work. In some quarters, something for nothing is attractive. Votes can be bought, and Biden runs the master class in vote buying. Second hour of Varney just getting started.
So this has to do with, again, the idea that the left comes up with ideas and the right comes up with nothing. The Democrats come up with, we will pay for your college education, or we will forgive your student loans. And what do the Republicans say? No, 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 no. Well, psychologically speaking, if one person is offering you something, the other person is offering you nothing, you're going to go with the person that offers you something every single time. It's just common sense. So the Republicans have to come up with a counter proposal. Hey, Joe, that's a great idea. We understand there's a lot of people out there that are beleaguered, they're under a lot of debt, so let's go ahead and help them out. Tax cuts. That's what I would recommend, tax cuts. And it doesn't matter if whatever your counterproposal is really viable or not viable or whatever, because part of the point of this is to obfuscate, to confuse, to create such confusion and irritation, annoyance, and whatnot that people just throw up their hands and say, forget the whole thing. So tax cuts are what make the left bubble and fizz. If you want to see the left overreact, all you have to do is use the words tax cuts. Every time the left comes up with an idea, come back with, hey, great idea, but let's do tax cuts instead. And watch them again, bubble and fizz. So that's what you can do with this one. And the Republicans should do is come up with a counter proposal. My suggestion is tax cuts. Back in a minute. Thank you. And now from X, there's a post from Fox News, and the headline is, Trump is right. Republicans need to reframe the abortion debate. And so I'm glad they see that you start thinking that somebody's thinking about reframing. I don't think they're getting this quite right 100%, but at least somebody's thinking about reframing the debates. Okay, so here it goes. The pro-life movement accomplished its goal, overturning the judicial precedent of Planned Parenthood versus Casey and Roe v. Wade through the conservative. Let's try that again. The pro-life movement accomplished its goal of overturning the judicial precedent of Planned Parenthood v. Casey and Roe v. Wade through the conservative-leaning Supreme Court in the summer of 2022. In the blockbuster case Dobbs v. Jackson Women's Health Organization, the Supreme Court opinion authored by Justice Samuel Alito ruled in a 5-1-3 decision that we hold that Roe and Casey must be overruled. The Constitution makes no reference to abortion, and no such right is implicitly protected by any constitutional provision, including the one on which the defenders of Roe and Casey now chiefly rely, the Due Process Clause of the 14th Amendment. Simply put, abortion policy was now up to individual states, not the courts. For decades, the conservative pro-life movement lobbied for the overturning of Roe and allowing states to make abortion policy through their state representatives. And through President Trump's appointment of 3 Supreme Court justices, this happened. However, abortion at the federal level has caused Republicans issues with the electorate. Republicans need to learn how to message this delicate conversation, or we could face undertows going into November, just as we did in the 2022 midterms. Now, right there, I'm going to stop them and say, no, there was no undertow. The 2022 midterms were a disaster because of one person, and that was Senator McConnell, who decided it was more important to stick his thumb in the eye of Donald Trump by refusing to financially back Trump candidates. He figured it was much better to have a no majority in the Senate and a small majority in the House of Representatives than to back Trump's candidates and have robust majorities in both houses. That's on McConnell. It's got nothing to do with abortion, nothing to do with issues. Let's see here. President Trump's recent policy announcement on abortion is smart. Protect IVF, oppose a federal abortion ban, create a pro-life culture, and exceptions for rape, incest, and health of the mother. No, on all of those. But anyways, abortion has been a galvanizing issue for the Democrats across the country. So what? The economy and inflation dominated most of the conversation nationally. According to NBC News, 32% of voters ranked inflation as the top issue, while 27% ranked abortion as their top issue. Now, I'm going to stop it there. The thing is, again, reframing the debate. You have to reframe the debate, but it has to be you reframe it to something we can win. And the way we win is, there's two ways to win this. Number one is we can talk about it from our perspective. Why is it we hate abortion? Not just because it kills the unborn, but because it promotes promiscuity. Nothing good happens from promiscuous behavior, whether it's heterosexual or homosexual. It spreads disease, creates the conditions for abortion. Nothing good. So what we do is we talk, instead of abortion, we talk about promiscuity. That's a winner for us. Now, the other way to do this is to go to women. If we're going to attract women, and I do this all the time, every day on my podcast, I'm trying to recruit Democrats. And I recruit Democrat women by saying abortion is not power for women. Abortion is power for men. So if we reframe this as a power issue and make women on the left realize that they're not getting any power by lying on a cold table with their legs in the stirrups, having some stranger probing around in their private parts while their sex partner is out stooping their sister, there's no power in that, and there just isn't. It's honest. It's an honest. It's not just propaganda. It's the truth. So. That's the way. The other way to shape the debate. Shape it either as an issue of promiscuity or shape it as an issue of power. That's the way to win. Back in a minute. Thank you. And now, Donald Trump.
I think he's the greatest president we've ever had. I'm too emotional. But I'm really thankful that I've been invited here, so.
Tell me what makes you emotional about the president?
What he's done for the country, all his policy changes, what he's done for black and brown Americans, and what he's done for Hispanic people. And this, I'm trying to think.
I like the way he talks. Period. You know, he's not scared of anything. Trump does not lie. I'll tell you that much, man. He says, that's what I said, I'm going to stick to it. Whether you like it or not, I'm staying there.
Best thing about the event is the positivity. You know, it's not about the past. It's not about racism. It's not about slavery. It's about how things are going so well right now. That's the best thing about it.
Trump has done so many fantastic things, not only for, what you think the white people or the rich people, but for the black people, for the Asian people, for the Latino people, for everyone.
There is a growing danger that threatens every blessing our ancestors fought so hard for, struggled, they bled to secure. Our nation is witnessing a merciless campaign to wipe out our history, defame our heroes, erase our values, and indoctrinate our children. Angry mobs are trying to tear down statues of our founders, deface our most sacred memorials, and unleash a wave of violent crime in our cities. Many of these people have no idea why they're doing this, but some know exactly what they are doing. We are the nation that gave rise to the Wright brothers, Clara Barton, Jesse Owens, George Patton, General George Patton. They think the American people are weak and soft and submissive. But no, the American people are strong and proud, and they will not allow our country and all of its values, history, and culture to be taken from them. They want to silence us, but we will not be silenced. We stand tall, we stand proud, and we only kneel to Almighty God. It is time for our politicians to summon the bravery and determination of our American ancestors. It is time to plant our flag and to protect the greatest of this nation for citizens of every race, every city, and every part of this glorious land. Make no mistake, This left-wing cultural revolution is designed to overthrow the American Revolution. In so doing, they would destroy the very civilization that rescued billions from poverty, disease, violence, and hunger, and that lifted humanity to new heights of achievement, discovery, and progress. To make this possible, they are determined to tear down every statue, symbol, and memory of our national heritage. America's destiny is in our sights. America's heroes are embedded in our hearts. America's future is in our hands. And ladies and gentlemen, the best is yet to come.
And that was Donald Trump. Back in a minute. This is Ron, your host, the only true conservative in the United States today, bidding adios to all the butchers, bakers, and candlestick makers out there, and reminding you that you are not neutral and that the government has no rights.